You've known President Trump for years, well before his political days. What's he like as a person, and how would you describe your relationship today?
Well, we have known President Trump, my husband and I, for about 25 years. He's actually was involved in a couple of skits at WWE in the past. I have found him to be an incredibly loyal friend. He does what he says he's going to do. He really works incredibly hard, and he's pretty much committed to really making America great again, and I'm very proud to serve in his administration.
So the president is not particularly popular in Multnomah County. There were only about 17% of voters here who voted for him. He did a little bit better in suburban Portland and rural areas, but still lost by 11 points statewide. Safe to assume some of the business owners you're meeting with maybe aren't his biggest fan. I'm curious if that comes up in meetings, and what do you tell them to the people who maybe don't trust him when it comes to politics?
Well, I'd have to hear what they have to say. I'm not going to speculate on what any of the issues might be, but that is really the purpose of the tour. How can you know what people are thinking if you don't get out and talk to them? So that's part of my job. That's part of my task. I want to know what folks have to say. And, the bottom line is he was elected president of the United States, and I'm fully on board with being supportive of him and proud to be in his cabinet.
Surely it's come up, though, at some of these town hall meetings you've done. I mean, what do you tell them to kind of ease their concerns about the work you're doing with the SBA?
I haven't really heard those concerns. I've heard concerns about policy. I've heard concerns about health insurance. I've heard concerns about the regulatory environment and the tax environment, because what small businesses are telling me is, boy, we'd love to see taxes cut, because they are most of the time sub-S corps or LLC, sole proprietorship, so their income flows through their ordinary income account. So they're not worried so much about loopholes in this. They just say cut the rate. We're paying 35%, and boy, if you could get it to 15%, as the president says, or 20, that would be incredibly great. The regulatory environment is so strong. I'll give you an example. When I was campaigning for the Senate in the state of Connecticut, there was a nickel plating company that was there. And so there's a lot of caustic chemicals involved in that. And the owner told me, he said, look, I should be regulated. I want to make sure that I don't have anything here or practices that would harm the people working in my plant. I don't want to release, poisonous gases into the atmosphere. But let me tell you what happened. EPA came in, and they couldn't find anything to write me up on. And they wrote me up because the signs on the men's and women's room were not regulation size. And I said, well, did anybody get confused and go in the wrong bathrooms? He said, no. And he said, but the thing of it is, if it's a rule or regulation that you're not, up to speed on, and you are told, I'll be back in 30 days, correct this. But that wasn't the case. They checked the box. They fined him $5,000. That's a lot of money for a small business. So the regulatory environment needs to be just. It needs to address the real issues and not go overboard. And those are the things I hear from small businesses.
Okay, questions about Russian interference with the election and the nature of contacts between Russia and the Trump campaign continue to dog the administration. It's hampered President Trump's ability to push a legislative agenda in some aspects. Do you feel that spills over into agencies like yours and how they conduct day-to-day business?
I have not, in one business roundtable or one business that I have toured or any of my walk-arounds with small businesses in all the states I've been to already, had the Russian issue raised one time. These are entrepreneurs that are looking to grow their businesses. And look, small businesses, the backbone of the economy, even in Oregon. There are 98% of businesses in Oregon are small businesses, and over half of the population of Oregon are employed at small businesses. We have to grow this economy. Everybody wants the economy to grow. It's very hard when you're out there to hear people say, oh, I'm not in favor of small business. I don't want anybody to start a business. That just doesn't exist. And so the focus that I'm focused on, how do we help them grow and how do we help them be better?
One of President Trump's first actions in office was to pull out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That free trade agreement would have had big impacts here in Portland. So what do you tell small business owners who might have benefited under the TPP?
Well, I think just as we're looking at many of the policies that are looking to be changed, I think the president really has good people in place to evaluate the trade agreements and to see what is really best for the United States as a whole. And so he's evaluating that. The Department of Commerce is working on that. And we want to find out what will make the best trade agreements for the United States, because that's what we want. We want trade. We need markets to export to. 96% of consumers are outside of the United States, and do you know only 1% of small businesses export outside the United States when you've got the largest consumer market outside of the United States. So we have our trade division at SBA that works in conjunction with the administration's office. So we want to help fill those markets outside of the United States so businesses can grow, because one of the stats that I found incredibly interesting is that for small businesses that export, wages in those businesses tend to be 18% higher. Wow. Than they are in other businesses. I don't know the exact answer for that, but it's clearly an area to grow, help our economy grow, help small businesses grow if we can help them export outside of the United States.
Both Oregon and Washington have passed laws recently aimed to protect low-wage workers. Washington actually passed landmark paid family leave law that requires employees provide 12 weeks of paid family leave. Oregon's minimum wage just increased this month. It will continue stepping up eventually to nearly $15 an hour in the Portland area. I'm curious to your positions on both. Do you think requiring paid family leave could harm or hurt businesses in Washington trying to maybe recruit or even retain their employees?
I'll learn more about that as I am in Oregon and Washington today and tomorrow, because I want to hear from more of the small business, how they're being impacted by that. I can tell you that in general, the offices that I've heard from around the country in terms of minimum wage, minimum wage is different in different parts of the country, and I do think that states are in a better position to control the minimum wage laws, because a really rapid increase in minimum wage can really affect small businesses. And it's different for a minimum wage, the middle of the country, than it is in New York City or some other state. So minimum wage is it's a little bit tricky.
It's a complicated issue.
It's a complicated issue, and small businesses want to provide for the people who work for them. They want to hire teenagers. They want to hire people to come in and help during different times. But it makes it impossible sometimes when the minimum wage goes too high. And so what happens is entrepreneurs wind up doing a lot more of the work themselves, and they're not hiring. So we don't have that growth.
You have advocated in the past trade schools for a need for skilled laborers like mechanics, plumbers, or electricians. Why do you think that's so important in today's climate?
Well, I was told by the Department of Labor that the Keystone Pipeline that's been greenlit by President Trump, we don't have welders to come in and actually do the work to create the Keystone Pipeline available, today. Where are we importing them from? How do we get that skilled labor force? This goes all the way back when I was on the State Board of Education in Connecticut. And what we found was that when school budgets get cut, the first thing that gets cut are trade schools. And we do have a dearth of electricians and plumbers and welders and carpenters in our country. And these are really good jobs, and that's a real educational, cultural shift to understand that we need this as well as we need those college graduates, and not everybody has to have a college degree. I'm all for college degrees, but not everybody needs to have one or wants one or will be successful going forward. So the workforce of the 21st century, we have to be prepared in all areas.
The big news this week is the fact that Senate Republicans appear to have lost the votes they need to repeal and replace parts of the Affordable Care Act. So now President Trump is calling for Republicans to simply repeal Obamacare altogether and just come up with a replacement at a later time. Do you think that strategy is a good idea?
Well, when I continue to hear from our small businesses about the rising cost in health care, the premiums have just skyrocketed, over 200% since the health care bill was first passed. So what our businesses are looking for really is a good program. They want a free marketplace. They want to be able to buy insurance. They want to provide health care, for their employees, and many of them now can't do it. Many of them are staying under that 50, that magic 50 number, because if they go over that, then they're mandated to have health care. So they won't go up to that. And so we are stifling business, we're stifling growth. And the president has clearly said we're going to repeal Obamacare, so I think we're on pace to make that happen.
Now, critics, though, to play devil's advocate here, critics of simply repealing the Affordable Care Act altogether, they worry that it could send the insurance market into kind of a tailspin. Do you feel that as a valid concern?
Well, I certainly don't think that the repeal portion would be, okay, today it stops. There would have to be some wind down period, and I think common sense would prevail on how to do that. But the president clearly ran on repeal and replace Obamacare. And I think today the evidence is very clear that Obamacare is imploding on its own. There are many counties, many states that only have 1 or 2 exchanges, and small businesses, in fact, in Nevada have told me that they don't have any opportunity to buy health care, though they're mandated to buy health care. They can't go outside of the district for that exchange, but yet if they don't provide the health care, they still have to pay the penalty to the IRS. We can't let this stand.